Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Go 24/7 podcast. Bryce Koon alongside Sonny Shipp. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get that, we appreciate you. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button. Recruiting heavy today, and Sonny, there's a big reason why. It's a big weekend for LSU to be hosting not only some 2024 kids, some commits, some guys they want to flip. Before we get into some of the names, there's also 2025 guys as well. How big of a weekend is this to kind of open up SEC play and kind of have a large portion of your commitment base and some other guys as well on hand to see what is a traditional rival in Arkansas and just experience that atmosphere?
Yeah, I mean the Grambling State game. It kind of built off of we haven't been in here for a while, so let's create some excitement just being back at for football, Tiger Stadium and whatnot. But I think this will actually give to give the recruits kind of a gauge on how strong this LSU team is. But it will also create just a good environment, to create that environment that for it's an SEC game, it'd be half of it will be a night game in Tiger Stadium, so that'll kind of create a little bit of a little bit of mystique right there on its own. But and then anytime that you can get a 5-star who's uncommitted on your campus for an official visit, that in itself makes it a big one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, look, you talk about some of the names that litter this list. We'll start with that 2024. We got a great thread over on the board that you should check out, and obviously you can see as well a lot of the commits that are going to be there. But obviously, a name that a lot of people are keeping an eye on, it's Terry Bussey. And look, it's felt like it's been A&M a large lean there in the crystal ball predictions. What does it say about them to get him on campus before he makes this decision? I believe it's towards the end of September that he's making this decision.
The 28th, yeah, the
Mhm.
28th is when he's revealing his choice, and you get him on campus. You're getting the last official visit before he does make that announcement. And so that that kind of makes you feel like, okay, at least going into this weekend, you have a legitimate chance here, because I think with Terry Bussey, these kids, they play on Friday nights. Last thing they want to do is wake up on Saturday, go and travel and go to a place that, okay, I know I don't want to go here. So
Mm.
these guys have a lot more on their plates and a lot more to do than just to take these meaningless trips. And so I definitely don't think that this classifies as a meaningless trip. That's one of that, he's just going just to take a visit, just to have fun and just to get out there. I think he has legitimate interest in LSU. Obviously, you've got the reputation of DBU. LSU, while they have some cornerbacks on board in this class, and they've got some really good cornerbacks, I think they don't really have I guess that stargazer, that one that
Mm.
just when you see that name, it just resonates that, okay, this dude is an absolute baller. Some guys like Derek Stingley, some guys like Kevin Tolliver in the past, guys that just when you saw that name, you saw that 5-star, and you just, it just created all kind of excitement. And so to get him in this weekend, I'm with you. I think that Texas A&M going into the weekend, I think Texas A&M is the team to beat. I do think that some have kind of discounted LSU's chances here. I think a lot of that probably has to do with Texas A&M being mentioned as that school to kind of beat for so long, and then also for the fact that that LSU has 4 guys already committed in this class who
Mm.
other teams can point to and say, okay, that's a pretty crowded cornerback class already right there. So those are some things that kind of keep an eye on going into the weekend, how LSU overcomes that and whatnot. But if you're going to get a guy in and have a chance with him going into this decision, I think that LSU, you really couldn't complain about the opportunity that you have.
Obviously, they're going to have Kai Bates and Andre Evans on this visit with him, Sonny. Sometimes that can work with you. Sometimes it can kind of work against you. Sometimes, how do you see this playing out? Is LSU hoping that having those other 2 guys and kind of bending the ear of Terry is going to help? I mean, in your long past of covering recruiting, how often does this kind of help or hurt?
I think it could go either way. I really think it could go either way, and just depends on the different situations. You know, I, I get from an LSU perspective of, okay, you've got Andre Evans, one of the top players in Tennessee. Kai Bates, who picked off a couple of passes last week and is off to a big start in his senior season over in Florida. And so anytime you get a chance to get those guys on campus, you want to take that opportunity, especially considering that, Tennessee's not going to back off Andre Evans. Tennessee's not going to back off Kai Bates either, since that was kind of an LSU-Tennessee battle before he committed to the Tigers. And so you've got to take that opportunity. You've got to get them down here. You've got to get them on campus. You've got to take care of who you have before you can worry about turning off someone that you don't have, in my opinion. And so, it'd be interesting to see how that works itself out, down the road. But I really think that, it just kind of just depends on the situation and how it relates. Terry Bussey could come in this weekend, could really bond with those two, and like, oh man, we could totally see us start in the secondary. You two on the outside, me in the nickel, and me over the slot. So, there's a lot of different ways that could play out.
And true, obviously, you don't know the relationships these guys may have already had beforehand before they step on campus as well. A little thing I wanted to note and just get your thoughts on it. Glenn and I were down on the sideline pregame for the Grambling State game, and Ahmad Bros, walking around in his custom Miami Dolphins jersey that he's rocking. This kid, he's big. We got him listed 6'3", 250. When you look at the future of Ahmad Bro, not only it feels like one of the guys that is really trying to head up this 2024 class, but just his future there kind of on this defensive line. Do you see an opportunity for him to slide in if he continues to put on weight? I mean, what do you project his future be?
Yeah, and I think the last time I saw him during the summer at LSU's camp, I thought that he had a good solid frame to where, if he wanted to stay at defensive end, then he would probably have to be one of those guys who works to kind of keep himself there. You look at Savion Jones going into this season, he's put on, I think it was 20 pounds. He's up to 280. I mean, he's right on that edge of, okay, is he going to have to slide inside or not? In my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
And I think Ahmad Bro, I think he kind of has a similar frame. He's not as tall as Savion Jones, but I think he kind of has a similar frame with his body, and that it could kind of take him either way. But I think that he's going to have to, I think once he gets down here and once he gets to LSU, that he may find that it's going to be hard to stay in that 270 and that 275 range. And just next thing you know, he's already up to 290. And so, that's when it's going to be interesting. But if you also look at it, I think that when you look at the LSU roster, especially when you look at the 2023 signees, there's a couple of guys in there who classify as jack linebackers who could possibly play that defensive end spot opposite of the jack. Dylan Carpenter's a guy who comes to mind. Is he a guy who's 265, 270 in a couple of years? Jackson Howard, he's been in that mode to where he's kind of had to I don't want to say fight, but he's had to work to keep his body to where he feels like he could be that explosive, jack linebacker, as opposed to maybe growing into a defensive end or someone who could potentially, be an inside guy 3 years down the road. And so you never really know how those bodies are going to take off. But when I look at Ahmad Bro, I don't see a guy that if he does grow into a defensive tackle, that it's going to be just all of this weight that he puts on all of a sudden. Because I think he's pretty solid, and I think he carries his weight pretty well right now.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the frame. I mean, Glenn was even saying, he said, if he puts on, and he starts to get into LSU's nutrition program and the weightlifting program, I mean, you could really see a guy that could be very versatile along that defensive front. That's a question we've had on our board. Hey, what does the future of this defensive line look like? Bro could be an interchangeable piece along that front seven.
And Gabe
Sonny,
Relaford, I think
yes.
I think those two are kind of in the same mode, I think.
Gabe Relaford, another one. I mean, you talk about versatile pieces, especially the way that defensive lines want to play, have interchangeable spots. Those two guys obviously come to mind. We take a look at this 2025 visit list. I know that you touched on some of the running backs, and that's something that a lot of LSU fans are paying attention to because it's in home. It's in the state of this loaded running back class that's coming out of Louisiana. But a chance to get two 24/7 Sports composite 5-stars on campus, George McIntyre and Caleb Cunningham out of Mississippi, McIntyre out of Brentwood Academy there in Tennessee. Sonny, what does it say about the push this staff is trying to do? Obviously, Bryce Underwood takes his visit to Colorado. He's going to Penn State this weekend. I don't want to say they pivoted, but does it feel like they're kind of trying to keep their options open with the emergence of Colorado in this race for Bryce Underwood? George McIntyre's a heck of a quarterback in his own right, though.
Yeah, and he's been if you go and if you look at the if you look at the unofficial visits, he and Bryce Underwood, I believe they've both taken 3 trips. And I believe this will be McIntyre's fourth, and then Underwood is scheduled to come in for the Auburn game on October the 14th. And I don't think it's necessarily Joe Sloan trying to pivot, because I think Joe Sloan, when you had Bryce Underwood, when you have George McIntyre, the strong interest coming from both, the multiple unofficial visits, the multiple nights that they've spent, on your campus, in your backyard, points to the serious and strong interest right there. Now, obviously, in a perfect world, you'd love for Joe Sloan to have to say, okay, do I want Bryce Underwood or do I want George McIntyre? But unfortunately, recruiting doesn't always work out like that. And I think when you look at Bryce Underwood and you look at George McIntyre, I think you look at that as a situation where, man, you're fortunate if you can just get either one of those.
Yeah.
Like I said, obviously in a perfect world, you can go through and you can rank them 1, 2. And I'm sure that if you had 10 college coaches rank them 1, 2, they probably have 3, 4, maybe 5 different combinations in there of difference of opinions. And so I think this is just a case of, Joe Sloan doing what Joe Sloan has really been effective at since he's been at LSU, getting these quarterbacks on campus. They've seen just about everything that there is to see, minus Underwood, who I'm not sure if Underwood has been to an LSU game yet. I've got to go back and look at my notes on that, but I'm pretty sure McIntyre was in town last year for the either for Alabama game or one of the games right around that time. And so this just gives you an opportunity where you can really show that game day side of things, and you don't have to worry about having to, constantly the head coach having to constantly be by their side the whole time, because they've been here so many times. And so it allows Brian Kelly to still be able to put that emphasis and that focus on the game day preparations that, that can take a lot away from, some of these entertaining recruits on these visits and stuff. So, with McIntyre, and then when you're able to get Caleb Cunningham on campus too, the same time with McIntyre, these are 2 guys who, we saw it with Colin Hurley. Colin Hurley would talk about how when he was on campus with other receivers and stuff that LSU was recruiting. And so, whether McIntyre and Cunningham have a relationship or not, I'm sure their paths are going to cross a lot over the next year once, the camps and the combines and the camp circuit and everything hooks up really. And so having them come in on a weekend like this, you may really be able to blow Cunningham away. That can help you if something didn't go exactly the way that you wanted with McIntyre and whatnot. So it's, I think anytime you can get that kind of connection in that class with guys who don't already, who may not be already good friends, and you're able to help bridge that while they're on your campus, that's something that I think you could just kind of just point to, that when you try to connect all of those dots throughout the recruiting process.
You mentioned Caleb Cunningham. Obviously, the challenge is going to be pulling him out of Mississippi. Alabama's been really in on him. Auburn, Florida, Florida State, Georgia. The big name programs, and that's going to be something. Obviously, Ole Miss and Mississippi State are going to want to have a say in as well with Cunningham. I got the chance to talk to Cunningham earlier when he got his offer, and he obviously understands what it means to be a wide receiver at LSU. Had talked about some of the names they had even brought in, and he mentioned. One of the key things that he mentioned in his interview was the fact that the staff was already kind of showing him how they were developing the Shelton Sampsons and, the younger guys that are already there that maybe not getting on the field right now, but what does that look like in year 1 for them, which I think is a key piece of the recruiting process. If you're not going to play necessarily, how am I going to be developed? That's what all these kids want to know, and what's going to be best for me. So I don't, have to pick up the phone and someone else comes calling after that freshman season. I wanted to ask you this as we kind of go back to this 2024 class. You mentioned Relaford, along that defensive front. Jordan Guidry's another guy out of Ruston, teammates with Ahmad Bro, that's currently committed to Tulane. But then LSU hands out an offer to Elias Williams out of Florida, the 3-star Missouri commit. It's starting to feel like they want maybe one more, Sonny. Is that correct on that edge that they really want to solidify? How would you look at this between maybe these 3 names, and are there some other names that LSU's trying to nab to kind of round out that 2024 class?
Well, look at Elias Williams, and we were talking about Ahmad Bro a few minutes ago, a kid, in the 250 to 255 range. Elias Williams, I believe he's listed 265 or 270, if I'm not
270. Yeah.
mistaken. Yeah. So, this is a guy I think you look at. Excuse me. This is a guy I think you look at and you say, okay, where is he down the road? I think he's probably going to be on the interior down the road, unless
Mm.
he gets in a system that, you've got some 3-4s to where, they want those big, tall defensive ends that are more like tackles. But if he's at LSU, I could see him as a guy growing into the interior. And I think this is more a case of, okay, we missed out on Dominic McKinley. We still have some
Yeah.
guys that we're after, but, we need more than one.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of what this points to right here. Right there is that, we would love to have, we want Gabe Relaford. We would love to have Gabe Relaford. We really want to flip him, but, we really need one more too.
Yeah. I think when you look at Jordan Guidry, obviously committed to Tulane. Elias Williams, you mentioned 6'4", 270. Obviously feels like he could slide to the inside. Relaford there. Let's talk about him as we kind of round this out. Relaford obviously currently committed to A&M. He committed back in June. Where do you think LSU sits in this? Is this something the staff is still working hard to try to flip? And I don't know. I mean, what are the chances? I mean, what are the chances that Relaford says, "Hey, I want to stay home"? What goes into that pitch?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing was getting him on campus. You got him on
Mm-hmm.
campus for the Grambling game, and so now you got to look at getting him back on campus again. Obviously, Texas A&M, they want to keep. I have not seen anything or any indications that Texas A&M would like to part ways with Relaford,
Mm-hmm.
and so that they're going to be doing the same thing. Especially when you got a big game up in College Station this weekend with Auburn coming to town. And so it'd be interesting to see if Relaford does show up in College Station. As of right now, I don't have him down for being in Baton Rouge this weekend. But I do know that after the Grambling game, that they were already in talks of coming back down, of wanting to see the quote unquote the bigger game, the SEC game at night, and things like that. And so you just have to keep plugging away on Relaford. Obviously, you still got the D-line coaching situation. It is what it is. Don't expect any clarity on that in the next,
Mm-hmm.
in the next few weeks or anything. And so LSU's just going to have to keep plugging away at that. Keep plugging away to where you get him on campus again. Hopefully, you can get him on campus again, and you just got to keep getting him on campus enough to where it starts to feel like more home than College Station does. Because I think at the end of the day, that's going to be a big thing with Relaford, who comes from a tight knit family and things like that. So I think that'll be big for him.
Yeah, getting him on campus for potentially an Auburn game. Obviously, you look at that schedule, Florida game. After Florida beats Tennessee, that might carry a little bit more weight. Obviously, with the traditional
Texas
rivalry as
A&M.
well. A&M at the end of the season. I mean, it's kind of interesting, Sonny. The staff is going to get to look at this and say, we've barely been home the first 2 months of the season. We get to stack all of our visits. Does that play into anything when staffs look at visits? I mean, the way LSU schedule's set up, they're going to be on the road for a while until they get to kind of mid-October, and then it's at Alabama, and everything else is at home.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you also have to consider, you're sitting there with 24 commitments right now. Don't have a lot of room left. You don't have a lot
Yeah.
of room left, and a lot of your commitments are from inside the state too. You go through and you look at the out-of-state guys. Jelani Watkins, he took his official visit to LSU during the summer. He may be in this weekend, but they'll get him back on campus for at least one more unofficial, if not more, throughout the season. You go through Ethan Callaway, the big 4-star offensive tackle out of North Carolina. He already took his official visit. Andre Evans took his official. Kai Bates took his official. So they got a lot of those, a lot of the official visits that that you consider as, okay, they really need to get in. They've already
Mm-hmm.
gotten in, and that
Yeah.
played in a part in landing those commitments. Now, you look at the guys like Tradez Green, Joel Rogers, a lot of these in-state guys, Deshaun McBride, to where they can just drive over to campus, anytime, get on over and stuff. But you'll still, and then you want to hold that official for obviously in December once coaches, when coaches start getting out on the road, they're like, okay, let's see, who can we flip? We really need this. Let's go see if we can talk to this guy and stuff. And then you have that official that you can say, okay, this is the whole, this is the Louisiana class. All you guys are here from the boot, and just have that big camaraderie weekend. And I imagine that'd be in December, closer to the early signing period.
You also start to learn more about, your roster attrition through the transfer portal, guys that might want to end up leaving, guys that may even make their announcement there they're trying to go pro. You learn a lot more, and I'm sure that LSU is going to be learning a lot in the month of December about what their roster is going to be looking like going forward. As well. But no, look, recruiting in full effect. A big home game this weekend against Arkansas. We got the visit list over at Go 24/7. Sonny, do we have a deal right now that we need to push people to over at the site?
No, just come spend some time with Bryce Koon.
Yeah, we should have something like that,
Come welcome Bryce. Yeah, come help welcome Bryce to Louisiana.
There we go. Sonny, Shipp, Bryce Koon, talking a little LSU recruiting today. A big weekend, like we talked about, some big-time visitors. Make sure to stay tuned to the site, get that subscription in so you can hear all the latest news and notes of what happened this past weekend and what some of the thoughts of those recruits were. We'll catch you next time here on the Go 24/7 podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. We appreciate the support. Numbers continuing to climb here during the middle of football season, and we can't wait to keep bringing more content. We'll catch you next time here on the Go 24/7 podcast.